Coming up on episode 77 of the Upful Life podcast.
While I was down there for that, him and his wife Shannon went to church one day, and I just sat down at his practice piano and just wrote this kind of gospel sounding progression. And when they got back from church, I played it for him and he really, really liked it. So then after that, I went down there a couple of times to sort of flush the song out. And I mean, writing with him was the most unbelievable process I have ever witnessed. Like, he would write all these little bits of words or phrases on pieces of paper, and then he would just constantly shuffle them around, until they kind of made some sort of sense. All of a sudden, it's like you would go from having like no words to having a complete song, and also, we would also be tweaking the music. We would fix the verses a little bit, edit this, that, or that. But I mean, it was really amazing. We worked on the music, and then he was working on the words, and it would be like you would go from having like one or two words on a page, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the whole thing was just like done. I was like, what just happened? It was like a freaking tornado of inspiration, It would just be like, bam. I mean, it was incredible to watch. I just, he would have his glasses on, and he was just like, leaning over on the pages and working the words around like a puzzle. And then all of a sudden it was done. And I was just like, oh my God.
Yes, indeedy. Welcome to the Upful Life podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz, and this is episode number 77, coming at you live and direct from the Vibe Junkie studio in Oakland, California. Headed down to the Crescent City for Jazz Fest. So grateful you are tuning in. Greetings, dearly beloveds. I want to let y'all know about one of the best kept secrets in the festival world. There's a little gem located in Northern California with some of the hottest bands and the best attendees. For the Funk of It Music Festival has been bringing music lovers together since 2014 at a perfect little place called Belden Town Resort in the beautiful Feather River Canyon. This year's For the Funk of It Music Festival takes place August 9th through 11th. It's returning to Belden Town this year, where you can swim in the calm waters of the Feather River during the day and dance until the wee hours in the morning. The last act on the main stage goes until 3 a.m. every night, followed by DJ dance parties that go until dawn or later. This year's headliners are Cool Cool Cool, The Nth Power, and Polyrhythmics. Super dope. As well as Apollo Suns, Collectivity, West Grand Brass Band, Gold Souls, Liddy DeBungus, and many more, also hitting the stage. In years past, they've hosted acts such as Carl Denson's Tiny Universe, The Motet, Nigel Hall, Orgone, Big Sam's Funky Nation, Fred Wesley, Zigaboo, Vocab Company, Soul Scratch, Matador Soul Sounds, Five Alarm, Funk, Dig and Dirt, Object Heavy, Jazz Mafia, Lyrics Born. This year's headliners coming back in Polyrhythmics, Mingo, Fish Trap, Analog Sun, Kukaw, Funk Trek, Afrolicious, Delvon Lamar, Organ Trio, The Exchange, Lance Laswell, and many, many more. Every year, For the Funk of It celebrates the music of one of funk's pioneers, and this year, it's Kool and the Gang, who they're paying tribute to. Recent honoree, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Shout out Kool and the Gang. We can expect to hear their amazing music throughout the weekend, culminating with Horn-mageddon. 20 to 30 horn players on stage closing out the night. For the Funk of It is the only all-funk camping festival on the West Coast with RV spots, cabins, and hotel rooms on site. Plus, all weekend passes include free camping in the Plumas National Forest. This intimate setting only holds about 1,500 people, so tickets are indeed very limited. You can find out more information about sponsor and volunteer opportunities as well as tickets. Check out videos, photos, playlists. All of it's available at www.ftffest.com, ftffest.com. Get your tickets now for the Funk of It Music Festival. Thank you for the sponsor. Now let's get into episode 77. Yes, indeedy. It is that time of year, heading back down to the Crescent City for Jazz Fest. So you'll be hearing some content that I'm putting together while I'm down there. Like I always do, you might hear it on this podcast. Certainly will read it on Live for Life Music and upfullife.com. I appreciate everybody who checks out the podcast. Last episode with Cactus, GFE, very well received, including by the man himself. So shout out Cactus for that touching words about my work, and thanks for everybody who checked it out. Episode 76, Cactus from GFE, Secret Agent 23 Skidoo, a legend, an educator. Man, this is so fun just doing this one after the next. So I just want to get through a little bit of business, the Upful update. You can check out all things BGATs, all things Upful Life on upfullife.com. Shout out to the homies that Live for Live Music. They have a huge slate of shows. Just go to liveforlivemusic.com. There is a banner ad. Just click on that. It's going to give you all the dope options for Live for Live Music at Jazz Fest this year. So shout out Gideon and Kunj and Sarah, Andrew O'Brien, the whole team. Can't wait to get down there. Can't wait to see all my local cats. You know who you is. I'm not going to play favorites and go through my whole schedule, but you can read about my exploits like you always can on Live for Live Music and upfullife.com. And if you're picking up what I'm putting down on the Upful Life podcast and you have the time and are so inclined, please go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review the Upful Life podcast, or really any platform you choose to listen on, but Apple Podcasts specifically is most effective, bringing new listeners, new souls, new ears to the Upful Life podcast, and that's a beautiful thing. Just, surfing those algorithms in this direction. So rate and review the Upful Life podcast. That really helps out. And if you want to drop me a line, you want to send me a note, you want to make some suggestions or constructive criticisms, or just want to holler at your boy, email b.gets@upfullife.com. I love to hear from the people. So shout out everybody who sends me notes, messages, and plugs me into this or that, and just anybody who takes the time to listen to this podcast. But if you want to support me, if you want to send me a couple of dollars for making you holler, you can do so quite easily. Just go to upfullife.com, you click on the support button right at the top menu, and it'll take you to my Venmo. B gets a Venmo account. And if you want to send money some other way, we can work that out. Just send me an email, b.gets@upfullife.com. We'll figure it out. But this is a free podcast, free to listen to. I'm going to be rolling out some kind of subscription content adjacent to this. I'm saying it live on the air, so I make myself accountable. But it's going to be, written stuff, and podcast stuff, or audio, I should say. So we'll see different formats, and that's in development and to come in short order. How short? TBD. But that's the Upful update. I'm doing some other things, going to try to create some revenue opportunities for people who are interested in what I'm doing and try to maybe monetize some of my pontificating on various forms of the interwebs. But with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and let's get into episode 77 of the Upful Life podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz. I'm going to introduce Peter Levin. But first, a little more of the rumble. All right. It is my honor and privilege and pleasure to welcome to the Upful Life podcast the great Peter Levin, keyboardist and producer and arranger extraordinaire. He's been touching different scenes and lives for a quarter century, and as you'll hear, is super connected to all different types of musicians in not only the jam scene, but in Nashville, and even into hip-hop. He's a New Yorker to his core. However, he currently moved to Nashville, lives there, and is immersed in the music community in Music City. But he's got connections to the royal family with Shmeeans and Kras. He's worked extensively with the Blind Boys of Alabama, most notably even with the late, great Gregg Allman. Was basically his right-hand man, other keyboardist in his final endeavors. And he's also worked with the Highwomen and a number of other country and country-adjacent musicians. He's played with a number of bands and artists in the jam community, connected with the Nth Power for the Nth Power Ball at what ended up being the final Swanee Rising a couple years ago. So we talk about all this stuff and a whole lot more, and we are talking around his album that came out towards the end of last year. It was on my faves of the year, my favorite records annual roundup. It's called Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, and we talk about this album extensively. Actually, that's how we hooked up. It was several months ago, and we were connected by his label. So I want to shout out Solaris Entertainment Studio, because that's who brought us together. That's who is responsible for the record Saturday Night, Sunday Morning. And it's a dope record with all kinds of different collaborators touching on his time in the Allman's orbit, in the New York scene, and Nashville, and even beyond. So Peter is like a Kevin Bacon type. I know I say that a lot, but when you touch so many different lives and musical scenes and geographies, and it seems like he's had an opportunity to play with just about everybody. I would say more than half of the musicians that have been on this podcast have somehow shared a stage or a studio or some kind of connection with Peter Levin. So you're about to hear why on episode 77 of the Upful Life podcast, and this is for all my peeps heading down to New Orleans. Peter's not a New Orleans guy, but when you hear this podcast, you'll understand. It's all in the general swirl of the Crescent City and Jazz Fest and everything that is born and sprouted out of that beautiful place. So that's where I'm headed in a couple of days, and I wanted to put out one more podcast that was in alignment with how we're about to get down. So with that, episode 77, Peter Levin, Upful Life podcast, and I'm your host, B. Getz. Yes, indeedy. right, all right. Well, it is indeed an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to connect with the great Peter Levin. He's a keyboardist, singer, songwriter, has a new record out. We've traveled in the same circles. I've been a fan of many of his endeavors and collaborations and bands he's played in. So it is the joy to welcome Peter Levin to the Upful Life podcast.
Thank you. It's good to chat with you again. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Like I said, same circles, a lot of mutual friends, and you've worked with so many artists that I adore. So there's so much to talk about, but I like to start in the now. You have a great new record out. So I wanted to just kind of get your reflections. I'm sure you've been asked about it a lot. So my first question would be like, my snap reaction was Saturday night, Sunday morning feels like dance party and church. It is like funky, but it's got lots of gospel. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that title and also like just your intention with this record and this group of songs.
Yeah, sure. Your instinct is right on. That's exactly what it's about. The title sort of reflects the coming together of the styles of music that I had been involved in for the years leading up to making the record, which was specifically the Saturday night side was kind of the Gregg Allman side, the bluesy, soulful, kind of funky vibes on that side, mixed with the Sunday morning side, which was all the gospel influences from playing with the Blind Boys of Alabama for so long, so it was really the coming together of those two styles that I felt that title really represented that well. So yeah, you're exactly right on about that. I feel it was like a really good mix, and I was very very fortunate to be able to work with both those, both Gregg and the Blind Boys for as long as I did and am still doing.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it was funny because I was thinking about it in that sense with the sort of, we go out on a Saturday night and we love music, we dance, we have a good time, and whether we imbibe too much or dance too much or have too late of a night, inevitably Sunday morning rolls around and those glorious gospel tones really hit. So it was mission accomplished, man. You really nailed that. And when you talk about the two sides of the coin of like, where you come from or who you contribute to or who you collaborate with, you put them on the same song. So you got the Blind Boys with Jack and Mark on the same tunes, really blending both worlds together. How did you put that together? How did you bring those sort of like clearly different worlds of music and generations and geographies? How did you play musical director to those elements?
No, that's a great question. So it's funny. I a couple of the songs on the record, and I think one of the ones you're referencing might be Faith Will See You Through, which is one that definitely has a big funky side to it. It's really groovy, but it also has gospel vibes and a gospel message. It's funny. I wrote a couple songs on that album originally for the Blind Boys of Alabama. They released a record called Almost Home in 2017, which is when I started recording the basics for the record. But I had written a few songs specifically for them, like Working for the Lord, Faith Will See You Through, and maybe there was one other one that's escaping me right now. But unfortunately, there were a lot of songs to choose from for their record. When the Blind Boys make a record, I mean, everybody down the line's contributing, funneling songs to them. So unfortunately, my songs didn't make it. And when they didn't make it, I was like, man, you know what? I'm just going to flip it and I'll put them on my record. So that's what I did. I flipped it, and I recorded the basics down at Fame. And I asked the Blind Boys, at that point I had been with them with almost 10 years at that point. And, they've always supported my endeavors outside of the group. And when I approached them about sitting in on my record, they graciously said yes. And it was amazing. I mean, so that's how I was able to sort of bring them into the fold on that. And cats like Mark Quinones, long history with the Allman Brothers, and played with everybody over the years, and now he's with the Doobies. But the band I put together to play those songs was a lot of the Blind Boys band. Joey Williams, Steve Ray Latson, Austin Moore, who I have toured with as the Blind Boys band. So it just made total sense, playing those songs with them, having the Blind Boys come and sing. And Quinones jumped in on percussion just because, I invited him down there for the session, and he's an amazing musician in his own right. He's got a really, really good head for arranging, and he spent a lot of time in the jazz world and the Allman's world. He's a wealth of knowledge for that kind of stuff. So that's how I was able to bring all those folks together. We recorded the basics first, then I had the Blind Boys come down and do their thing on the record, which was great. And then a little later on, I had Jack Pearson come down and do his thing. I mean, and I love Jack because he's such he's a phenomenal guitar player. I mean, those that have seen him just know, the way he plays is just so effortless. There's no hesitation between his ideas and execution. It's really amazing to watch. And, obviously there's a connection to the Allman Brothers there with, and Gregg, which was very important to me to keep that theme throughout the record, because Gregg passed in May of 2017, and I started recording the record at Fame in August of 2017. So it was very important for me to keep the Blind Boys tradition and the Allman's tradition, especially Gregg, sort of keep those traditions as a theme weaving through all the music.
I've got to run to keep from hiding, and I'm bound to keep on riding. I've got one more silver dollar, but I'm not gonna let him catch me, no, not gonna let him catch the midnight rider.
Yeah, man, so well said. And I love that, just interweaving these like iconic institutions and the musicians that make them up, and bringing them together on your project. It's a real testament to obviously how they feel about y'all, or you specifically, Peter, and vice versa. Just being able to coalesce. I love that track, the first one that starts the album. And it's funny because I'm talking to you in Nashville. We're talking about the Blind Boys and the Allman thing, which is south of the Mason-Dixon line. But when I think of Peter Levin, you're a New Yorker to me. You're, first and foremost.
Right.
And that's how I found you. And really, this is a Big Lettuce House, Big Lettuce podcast. And obviously you've got Kraz and Shmeeans on the record. And
Yeah.
I think it's through that world that I actually found out about you, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about your relationship. I know Kraz is not in Lettuce at the moment, but he's obviously Lettuce founder, fam, and Shmeeans still killing the game.
Oh,
and you
yeah.
gave them each a feature on different songs on your record. So talk to me a little bit about whether it's those guys, those songs, whatever.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, Kras, I've known Kras for a long time. I was in his first carnation of the Eric Krasno band. So that's kind of really where, we got sort of tight and, musically and things like, things like that. I'd obviously seen him with Lettuce a bunch, but where we sort of, got close and got to be tighter friends was through his own band. And that first carnation where it was myself, it was I think Eric Cal was on drums, Jane Casey was in the band, Alicia Shakur was in the band, and Alex Shakur was in the band, I believe, at the time. And maybe Ron Johnson did a couple gigs early on as well. But so that's where I got to meet Kras, and I've always been super fond and of his playing. I mean, he's just such a tasty cat. You know what I mean? There's never any extraneous notes. Everything he always plays makes sense. Man, he's got a real feel for the blues, and just, I really have enjoyed playing with him over the years. So, when it came time, I had that song "Peace and Understanding," which was like a kind of a funky, soul blues inspired thing, and I heard it in my head. I felt he would be perfect for it to add on it. So that's what happened. I called him. I was like, "Yo, Kras, man, I got this song, and man, if you got the time, I really love for you to play on it." And graciously he did, and I mean, he killed it. I mean, his playing is so tasty on it. He steps out, fills just at the right times. He's not stepping over. He's just a great listener and super smooth. And his solo towards the end of the track is just all butter. I mean, it made the track, man. It made the track. Since then I've worked with Kras a couple of times. We'll play some gigs, every now and then. I wish I was, wish we were playing a little more together, but that'll happen down the road, And as far as Shmeeans, I mean, Shmeeans is my bro. I mean, he's one of the funkiest cats, you will come across, whether it's on guitar or whatever it is. He's just a funky brother. But there are very few guitarists out there that truly appreciate the art of rhythm guitar. It's I really feel like it's a lost art, but not for him. He's keeping it alive. And, we connected years ago. It was funny because, I connected with Lettuce originally because I was doing some recording sessions with Bernard Purdy and a couple of his boys from back in the day, like Don Albano, a guitar player, and Stu Brooks. And these were guys that used to play on all the hits in the 70s, all the disco hits. You hear, chances are Don, Stu, and a couple of his boys are on those hits because Purdy was playing the drums on a lot of those things. So I was doing some recording sessions with Purdy, and we actually recorded a couple of Lettuce songs. We did Uptown I forget, the titles might escape me and I apologize. But needless to say, we recorded these Lettuce tunes. Flash forward a couple months, I'm over down in Astor Place hanging up at Jason Crosby's house. At the time, he was with this gal, Katie, who's also a good friend of mine, and they would have these parties down there. So Shmeeans was a regular down at these parties because he was also playing with Robert Randolph, my buddy from the Blind Boys. Joey Williams was also down there. Jason Crosby was playing with the Blind Boys and Robert. So it was like a whole hang. So I run into Shmeeans and, he introduces himself. He's like, yeah, I'm with this band Lettuce. I was like, Lettuce? I was like, no way. And I play him the versions of their songs with me and Bernard Purdy. And it was like a total hang. Like he couldn't believe it. He was like, no way, that's awesome. So that's how we got to know each other was through that. And, over the years, I've been following them, and obviously they're great band. They crush it, super funky, I had done some playing with Shmeeans. We had this group for a little while called Shmeeans and the Expanded Consciousness, which for a while was myself, Chris Laughlin, bass player, Adam Deitch, and Shmeeans. I mean, the band was freaking outstanding. And sometimes we would do it as an organ trio too, which was cool. So I got to be real tight with Shmeeans and just really respected his playing. And again, he's another tasty brother that just plays the right stuff at the right time. But specifically, I really loved his appreciation for rhythm guitar. So, flash forward all those years to when I'm making my record, I had this song called I Know How You Feel, which I've recorded a few times over the years. I wrote it in the early 90s. But I've recorded it, over the years a few times. And, it's this combination of like, funk, soul, Earth, Wind, and Fire changes kind of stuff. And I just knew Shmeeans would be perfect. Like I felt it. Same kind of thing with Kraz on that Peace and Understanding tune. So I was actually in Denver on some shows with this artist out of Nashville I play with. Her name is Amanda Shires. So while I was out there in Denver, I called Shmeeans up and I was like, yo, bro, I got this tune, I think it'd be perfect on. Will you throw down? And he was like, absolutely. So we went to the studio out there outside of Denver called Scanhope House, which the engineer was Joshua Fairman, who plays bass with Sun Squabby, if you know those guys. And he's a great engineer too. I mean, amazing engineer. So Shmeeans came down. And man, he nailed. I mean, it's not an easy song. The changes in there are tough. There's a lot of curveballs, and he nailed the rhythm. And then he also, probably my favorite part of the song is towards the end. We kind of go back and forth with Shmeeans soloing and me on guitar, which is a nice little juxtaposition there. So. I was so thankful for him throwing down on that track. I mean, he really brought it to life. His playing really brought it to life. I really have a lot of respect for him and Kraz, as musicians. And it's cool because we kind of came up. We're roughly the same age. I may have a few years, but we sort of came up, through in a lot of ways at the same time. So it was great having both those guys on there. I was very fortunate, and I really have nothing but the utmost respect for both of them as people and musicians.
Word. Yeah, I think that you nailed it with describing both of their styles and approaches and just how they move through music and life. And I love Kraz, always loved Kraz, So Live, Lettuce. But I do think Shmeeans is like this unsung hero. So he's so good. And obviously, because he was in a band with Eric Krasno, he, it was in his shadow for a long time. So I just love to see him get some shine with Lettuce now. And of course, when he's doing, and I remember the Expanded Consciousness. I saw a couple of those gigs.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Definitely.
Very cool.
And I loved that era when, everybody had their own little side things, like Kraz had that early band with that you mentioned, and Shmeeans with the Expanded Consciousness. Nigel had a band with like Ron Johnson, Nikki, and so forth. It was pretty cool. And that was a great era. And then obviously the relationships are forever because y'all are still playing gigs together, on each other's records. One thing I thought was remarkable was how you were able to, like, you have this huge Rolodex and you were able to find the right song and the right cat because, to do the features in a way that stays authentic to your vision, sounds like, akin to their skill set. I mean, I know that's not easy and that people have feelings and emotions and whatever, and you have to sort of navigate a lot of professional stuff, interpersonal stuff, and still nail the cut. So I just wanted to acknowledge that it's just like everybody feels really right at home on the different songs that they're featured on. And before we get away from the album, one last thing, and I could talk about almost every track, but one made me like, really stoked. And I have to say that along with like Jerry Garcia and Lettuce and D'Angelo, like the Mount Rushmore of my favorite things is The Wire, the show The Wire.
Oh, yeah.
So when I got to Way Down in the Hole, like in that sort of Blue Note, rare groove throwback style, I was like squealing. I was so stoked. So, and I know obviously the Blind Boys did one of the versions. There's a different one for each of the 5 seasons. But yeah, you belong in if they make a 6th season, the PETER LEVIN version ought to be the one. So how did you choose that? And man, just tell me about Way Down in the Hole.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So I joined the Blind Boys in 2008, and at the time, yes, that was a big hit for them. That version of the Tom Waits song was a big hit. So that came about because when the Blind Boys would sound check, a lot of times the singers wouldn't be at sound check. Joey and Trey and or Stevie Ray would check their mics for them, get them all tuned up. And so when we would be sound checking, one day we just started. We would often sound check with that groove, the groove. And one day I just started putting the melody on organ to it, and we would just sound check with that song. I was playing the melody, we were playing the groove, and we just did it, and we just did it. Sound check after sound check, city after city, all over the world. We would just be grooving that thing, and it always sounded great. When it came time to cut the record, we were just in the studio. It was me, Austin, the drummer from the Blind Boys, Joey and Steve Ray. And, I think we might have just cut an instrumental version of Midnight Rider. And we were sitting in there, and you know what? I just said, yo, we got to cut Down in the Hole. It was just that simple and that straightforward. And, we cut that in one take. So I mean, that was it. We had been sound checking it and playing it and just kind of having fun with it for years. And there we were in the studio and we just cut it, and it turned out great. It's one of my favorites on the record, you know?
Yeah, likewise, man. And honestly, you can tell, juxtaposed to some of the other tracks, which obviously you recorded here, you got Shmeeans' part there, whatever. You can hear that way down in the hole is y'all in a room. Like really, just nailing it. Like that has that buzz, that energy. So and you mentioned Midnight Rider, and this would be a good way to segue into the Allman stuff and Trouble No More stuff. But what a beautiful way to close the record. As a testament to Gregg and all the generations of Allmans that are on the record. It's just a really nice, beautiful, touching gesture and awesome rendition. I love that combo, the one that did Midnight Rider and did Way Down in the Hole, that sort of like organ, rare groove vibe, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just thought it's just touching to finish there, to like sort of disembark with Midnight Rider after the record concludes. So let's talk a little bit about Gregg. I had Ron Johnson on the pod about a year and a half ago, and I go back with Ron from the Carl Denson days.
Oh, dig it. Very
yeah,
cool.
He was actually the first dude to ever like befriend me, leave me tickets to cover the show. Like he pulled the curtain back first. Ron. I'm talking like 2001, when I was working for Jam-Base, just like, hey, can I come cover the show? It was like Ron was the dude. He introduced me to Littlefield, who introduced me to Carl. The rest is history. But yeah, so
awesome.
Shout out Ron Johnson on the bass.
Yes, sir.
But he was really, really poignant in talking about, his relationship with Gregg, and also the time in that band, and like what he learned about music, what he learned about himself. And just the depth of that experience. So as little or as much as you're comfortable, just talking about like, how did you link with Gregg, and what are some reflections you have from your time, in his band and being his friend?
Sure. Well, I linked with Gregg originally. It was 2013, and the Allmans were doing their Beacon run there in March. And I was at one of the shows, and I actually ran into Warren, and Warren was like, hey, the Blind Boys happened to be in town at the same time. They were doing a tribute for Prince at Carnegie Hall. So the Blind Boys were in town, the Allmans were in town. Warren saw me backstage and was like, hey, are you around tomorrow? Because, I think we're going to have the Blind Boys sit in. And I was like, yeah, of course I'm around tomorrow. And he was like, great, and maybe you and Gregg can play some stuff. And then, I was there basically just to kind of help out, because, Gregg, wasn't super probably familiar with the Blind Boys songs they were going to do. You know what I mean? Not that he couldn't play it, but it was just easier if I was there to play with him and, help the song along. So that's what happened. So the next night, the Blind Boys came and sat in with the Allmans, and it was amazing. That might have been my first time sitting in with them which was a dream come true. I grew up on 111th of Broadway. Beacon was on 74th. I used to see them at the Beacon. You know, I can't even tell you how many shows I've seen in them. Definitely 3 digits. So anyway, long story short, I met Gregg that night, and it was awesome. It was a dream come true. We played side by side, and it was great. Flash forward maybe 6 months, I get a call from Scott Sherrard, who was Gregg's MD at the time, guitar player, who's now actually with Little Feat. He's playing and singing with Little Feat. So Scott and I were old friends from the New York City trench days, you know, when we would do Bitter Ends all the time, and, you know, Prohibition and you know, Evelyn Lounge on the Upper West Side when there was still a scene going on up there. So Scott called me, and I guess the keyboard player that they had was busy with a couple other things, and they were looking for someone to kind of, you know, fill in and take over the chair. So, you know, Scott was like, you know, we have this tour in coming up in May, and the ironic thing was it was like the same length of time as a Blind Boys tour I had coming up. But Scott was like, you know, are you available to do it? And I was like, yes, I can do it. And I remember calling the Blind Boys and being like, you know, Ricky, I got some good news and bad news. And I was like, what do you want first? And he's like, well, give me the bad news. I was like, well, Gregg Allman called. And he was like, oh. And then I was like, the good news is Gregg Allman called. And he was like, I got you. They affectionately call me Church Boy. So he was like, man, it's no problem, Church Boy. Do what you got to do. We love you. We're totally happy for you. So I went down to audition with the Gregg Allman band, right? They called me down there. They needed someone. The keyboard player wasn't available at that rehearsal. They were getting ready to go do a tour in Australia. So they needed some keys to rehearse with the band. You know, they needed someone to play keys, you know, to rehearse. And for me, it also acted as an audition. So I went down there. They recorded me. And, you know, I did the rehearsal. I mean, you know, I nailed every song. I knew all the songs. It wasn't even a rehearsal for me. Like, I knew all Chuck Leavell's riffs, you know, and I guess the keyboard player before me didn't really come from that world. He's more of kind of a jazz kind of guy. So didn't, you know, not that he wasn't a great player, just it wasn't really his lane. You know what I mean? Where it was my lane. I mean, that is my lane. So, you know, they taped the rehearsal, whatever, sent it to Gregg, and I guess Gregg really, really dug it. And, you know, there was also that Blind Boys connection that he may or may not have remembered. And so after hearing the audition, they offered me that tour in May. And, you know, I really slaughtered the first 2 gigs. And it was after the second gig that Gregg offered me the chair. He was like, man, you're the guy, you know, we want, you know, I'd love for you to do it. And I was blown away. I was like, of course. I mean, it really was a dream come true. You know, I grew up playing Hammond organ and singing, and, you know, I mean, there weren't a lot of folks doing that. And Gregg was the guy. I mean, one of the greatest, you know, singers of all time, and an amazing organ player, often an underrated organ player. So it really was a dream come true for me. So that's how we met, and you know, and you know, we definitely became friends beyond him just being my boss. You know, I would often go down to this place outside of Savannah, and we would write music and, you know, hang, and you know, he would tell me these amazing stories, and you know, that's actually how we got to co-write a song on the record. One of the songs on there, I wrote with him. You know, I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, which was amazing as well.
Can you just talk about that, like writing with Gregg versus performing? Like, how did you guys create together?
Sure. I mean, my first experience with him writing, I went down to Savannah, and him and Scott were working on a song called "My Only True Friend."
I can't face living this life alone. I can't bear to think this might be the end, but you and I both know the road is my only true friend.
My only true friend, which was on the Southern Blood record. So I went down there to sort of just help Gregg with like some voicings, and not really like, I wasn't like showing him what to play, but just like kind of, I don't know, just playing some voicings, some chord changes or whatever it was. So that's where I sort of got in there, and then while I was down there for that, him and his wife Shannon went to church one day, and I just sat down at his practice piano and just wrote this kind of gospel sounding progression. And when they got back from church, I played it for him, and he really, really liked it. So then after that, I went down there a couple of times to sort of flush the song out. And I mean, writing with him was the most unbelievable process I have ever witnessed. Like he would write all these little bits of words or phrases on pieces of paper, and then he would just constantly shuffle them around, until they kind of made some sort of sense. And all of a sudden, it's like you would go from having like, no words to having a complete song, and also, we would also be tweaking the music. We would fix the verses a little bit, edit this, that, or that. But I mean, it was really amazing, we worked on the music, and then he was working on the words, and it would be like, you would go from having like one or two words on a page, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the whole thing was just like done. I was like, what just happened? It was like a freaking tornado of inspiration, it would just be like, bam. I mean, it was incredible to watch. I just, he would have his glasses on, and he was just like, leaning over on the pages and working the words around like a puzzle. And then all of a sudden it was done. And I was just like, oh my God, it was amazing. It was so special to be able to be a part of that. And it's something I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget. It was really, and the way he would talk about music too. And like, how the chords got to make sense, and how the bridge has got to, have its thing. It was all just amazing. And at the same time was so simple in its core, but yet so effective. You know what I mean? A lot of time as musicians, we get caught up in trying to do what's cool. You know what I mean? Like do some riffs that's cool or whatever it is. And it ain't really that cool. You know what I mean? What's cool is having a good song and a bridge that makes sense, and the changes that, reflect emotions of what you're trying to say. That's what is cool. And he was just watching him do that and put it all together was just, it was amazing, man. It was amazing. It was really one of the highlights of highlights of some creative processes I've been through. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I can't imagine, just sitting there with him and creating. That's why I wanted to ask you to take us there. I appreciate that. Yeah, so from there, like back to the sort of narrative arc, you were in his band till the end. Like you were his guy, and I think one thing that was really beautiful about what Ron was talking about was just how y'all held the space for him to be Gregg Allman till the end. Like, it was like a very like dignified and beautiful golden era for him after, turbulent times and all the shit that he had lived through.
Yeah.
To be able to support him, to have like a dignified golden era at the end of his life, and the music to match, original music, new music, performances, etc. So yeah, you're a big part of that, and I think it speaks to like the honor to be brought into that fold, to be brought into the creative process, especially some of the last musical statements he ever made. Like you contributed greatly to those. and that's some forever shit. And I think what's beautiful about the community is that the Allman's fans, you know, you're one of them now. Like anything you do, there will be a percentage of Allman's fans interested in, just on principle, you know, the sort of connection, and you reciprocate that by bringing a bunch of Allman's folks back into the fold for your thing. So I just, you know, the circle of life and musical organism is a beautiful thing. And
just to touch, you know, just because it's so important to me, you know, it's exactly as you said, you know, having that time with him was, you know, something it was the ultimate honor and something I'll obviously never, ever forget. And that's why also there was so much influence of him on that record. You know, I did versions of, you know, 3 or 4 of his songs. You know, I did a version of Come and Go Blues, a couple versions of Midnight Rider. You know, I did a version of Please Call Home, where I sort of reharmonized it in a gospel kind of setting.
Lost, baby, I ain't funny. When you call to me, I'll come running straight to your side. But then I'll confide in you.
I want to say there might have even been one more I did, and originally I recorded those songs. I wasn't even going to put them on the record. You know, originally I was going to sing them, and it was just a way of me kind of saying goodbye. You know, just I wanted to record them and, you know, just have them. But once I tried singing them, it was just like too emotional. I couldn't do it. So I put the melody on the organ, and all of a sudden it just had this different thing. It was kind of like what you're talking, kind of like that almost blue notey kind of, you know, when the organist would cover the pop songs of the day, it kind of had that vibe. So, you know, I just did that with the songs, and they took on this whole other vibe. And I mean, quite honestly, you know, it's really tough singing Gregg's songs because there's no way you're ever going to do it better. You know what I mean? You could make it your own, sure, but it's almost as if trying to sing, at least for me, as much as I enjoy singing his songs, and I do sing some on my shows, but, you know, it's almost, you know, some of them are just, I don't know, they're just really hard to sing and hard to touch like that. So for me, you know, putting the melody on the organ just opened it up a lot more, and I was able to make it my own a little bit more while maintaining his influence. And so that's kind of how that went down. And then once I, you know, put the melody on the organ and kind of brought that sort of classic vibe to it, I felt a little bit more comfortable putting it on the record, you know, specifically because, you know, he really meant a lot to me, and, you know, hopefully, you know, the fans would, you know, his fans would dig it. And, you know, it's a new approach to some of his music. And that's how music lives on. You know, it doesn't live on when you just do it the same way that everyone else has done it over and over. It kind of dies out. But when you reinterpret it and play it different ways and rearrange it, is how it sort of breathes, you know, keeps the life of it going. So that's you know, also the side to that stuff. It was, you know, it was honoring him and paying tribute, and just, you know, keeping, you know, his vibe alive and current and important, you know?
yeah, I think you did a remarkable job in that on your own record. And then on the other side of that coin with Trouble No More, where it's like both sides. You're holding to the traditions and like sort of a snapshot of, you know, the Allmans. And then at the same time, you're all different musicians coming from different places, and you are still reinterpreting and sort of reimagining the possibilities and capabilities of the songbook as if. And I find it really interesting I'm really close with Nikki Glaspie. She was the musical director of our wedding and one of my dearest
Oh,
friends
dig
in the
it.
game. Yeah, we go back also to like, the early 2000s with Sam Kinninger Band, but I digress. She told me that going into the Trouble No More experience, she had relatively no connection or understanding of the Allmans other than admiration for who they were as like a cultural icon. And then you're talking about your, 3 digits of shows living around the corner from the Beacon, growing up wanting to be Gregg Allman. So, and you're both in this band that
Yeah.
interprets the music of the Allman Brothers. So,
Lord, I just can't go out that door. Labor, one way out, babe. Lord, I just can't go out that door. Just a man down there might be your man, I don't know.
Well, as you said, I mean, Nikki's one of my favorite musicians on the planet. I mean, she's amazing. And she's really brought, life and a freshness to the project. And having her play with Jack Ryan, from Marcus's band, when the two of them get together and are on the gigs, I mean, it's really special. They really play great together. They definitely catch the kind of Butch and Jamo vibe of playing together, but they also are able to branch off and kind of do their own thing as well and bring some newness to the project, which is what was important when we started it. Like you said, the idea was to sort of pay tribute to them and homage, but also bring some new life into it, and that's what happens when you get folks like Nikki and Daniel Donato and Taz and folks that are a little younger but still have a huge respect for the music. And I mean, Taz, he's been sitting in with the Allmans since he was a kid, so there was that connection too. So musically about the project, I mean, it's been great. I've been so proud of these folks playing this, playing this catalog, which is not an easy catalog, like some of the songs, they get deep. It's not a lot of folks, they hear the hits and they just think that it's kind of like an easy, cushy kind of thing, but it's not. I mean, you go back, you go back to some of those songs and there's, odd time changes and, serious harmonies and 3-part harmonies where 2 guitars and keys are doing it. So I've been really proud of everyone in that band, just bringing it, nonstop to these shows. And it's been going great. We've had some killer gigs. We've done a bunch of great festivals, and we're trucking on through. We recorded a couple of tunes down at Capricorn Studios down in Macon, which was obviously home to the Allman Brothers for making music. So I'm not sure when we're going to release those, but we've done some great live shows, some great studio stuff, and everyone in the band is on point, man. It's a real pleasure to play with these folks because, like I say, we're interpreting the music our own way while at the same time showing a lot of respect for and a lot of homage to the guys and to the music itself. So it's been great. I mean, it's been a great experience. I really, really hope it continues on for forever.
Yeah, the road goes on forever. That's how the song goes. So, and I have to say, I saw you once. I loved it. That said, like, I really enjoyed the way y'all, reinterpreted or reimagined the experience, and it was just awesome to see all the generations, and he even got brothers on stage, Taz and his brother.
Yeah.
So you keep that tradition intact.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing. I mean, watching those two kind of tune in to each other, is amazing. I mean, they are amazing when they get going. And you're right, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just the story, having Taz and Dylan as 2 brothers kind of as a mirror to Gregg and Dwayne up there is a very cool aspect of the story and the narrative. So yeah, that's very special. That's very special.
So my best friend since fifth grade, Jason, back in Philly, we met at a Kiss concert in the glam Kiss, no makeup, like a Hot in the Shade tour, 1990. Realized we were in the same elementary school, just in different grades, and whether it's been like Fish or Jazz Fest or whatever, he's literally one of my best friends in the world. And I visited him the other day in Philly when I was back home, spending some time with my mom. And he hands me a vinyl record. He's like, "This is my favorite album of the past 5 years, any genre." And it was the Highwomen.
Oh, nice.
I left field as fuck. I was like, "Wow, dude, really?" He's like, "You need to get into this." So I open up, I'm reading the liners, we're listening to it, and there you are.
We're the Highwomen. We sing a story still untold. We carry the sons you can only hold. We are the daughters of the silent generation. You send our hearts to die alone in foreign nations. They may return to us as tiny drops of rain, but we will still remain. And we'll come back again and again and again and again. We'll come back again and again and again.
So I want to just kind of segue into that project and just working with Amanda Shires, because
Sure.
That's a whole nother side of Peter Levin, the musician, songwriter, producer, etc.
Yeah. I mean, wow, that's awesome, man. I was not expecting that, but it really is. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, but it really is a fantastic record. I mean, there's not a dud song on the record. Every song is great, and I mean, and that's what happens when you get four talented women like that writing songs. I mean, you have, all of them. Brandy, Amanda, Maren Morris, they're all huge stars, and Natalie Hemby, she's one of the biggest songwriters in Nashville. So, working on that project was amazing. I mean, we recorded it at a RCAA in Nashville. Dave Cobb produced it, a big, huge producer, a little outside of the circles we grew up in, but really, really amazing. I mean, amazing producer, well respected, and it was a great album to make. I mean, I played keys on it. Jason Isbell played guitar. Amanda was playing fiddle. Brandy works with these two these two brothers. They're twins, Phil and Tim Hainsroth. They've been working with Brandy since she started writing songs and recording. They're great musicians. And Sheryl Crow guested on bass, which was awesome. She was in the studio. And Chris Powell was on drums, a great Nashville drummer. Cobb played bass on a bunch of the stuff. And the songs that the ladies brought to the table were just unbelievable. I mean, they're some of them are really, really beautiful. The lyrics are great, and they're real songs, man. It's nice to have a record that's about songs, and especially the message of those songs. The Highwomen sort of started because these women were, the common thread between these women was they were really concerned that their daughters, it was a few things. It was the fact that women have not had a huge voice in country music, really, I guess, since it started. It really is kind of a male-dominated industry, and so it was their way of playing on the name, the Highwaymen, putting it to the Highwomen, kind of playing on that juxtaposition of female to male, relationship, and just coming up with these songs that reflected, stories and concerns that women have had. I mean, historically, about pushing these concerns to the forefront. They also all have children, and we're concerned that that their daughters may not be able to find a place in country music, which is a valid concern. So the songs that these ladies wrote just were really amazing, and there's a lot of politics addressed, and folks from different backgrounds addressed, and just it was really a beautiful album and project. And again, it really is a great record, cover to cover. It was such a blessing to be a part of it. And it was a great way. We did it here in Nashville. We've been fortunate enough to play some gigs out there. I really wish we would go on tour, but between Amanda, Marin, Natalie, and Brandy's schedules, they're 4 busy women.
And when we love someone, we take them to heaven. And if the shoe fits, we're gonna buy 11. How we get it done, we like to keep them guessing, but secretly we all know we're redesigning women, running the world while we're cleaning up the kitchen, making bank, shaking hands, driving 80, trying to get home just to feed the babies, skipping the bread for the butter, changing our minds like we change our hair color. Yeah, ever since the beginning, we've been redesigning women.
And aside from that, I owe it to Amanda. She brought me into the band, and we did co-write a song on that record. Don't Call Me was a song that we co-wrote, and she brought me into the group, and I really owe her one for that, because it's been amazing. And working with her over the years, she was when I was working a lot in Nashville prior to moving here in October of 2018. But I had recorded a record with Amanda, her record To the Sunset of January of 2018, and she brought me in to her world, and it was great. I joined her band. We would tour and write songs, and I've made now 5 or 6 records with her. And the interesting point is, we actually met on Gregg Allman tour. She was opening for Gregg. Gregg was one of the only few entertainers that would let a pregnant woman open the shows. Most folks wouldn't do that. So Amanda was pregnant with Mercy at the time. Mercy's her and Jason's daughter. And so that's where we originally met, was she was opening a bunch of shows for Gregg, and we got to be friends there. She would come up on stage, and I would sort of flash the chord numbers to her so she could, feel comfortable in the jams. And we got to be friends. And, she called me up in January of 2018, was like, come play on my record. And, we kind of hit it off and have been, working together since. We've really made some really good music together. Both her solo stuff and that Highwomen stuff. I mean, again, I keep saying it, I don't mean to sound biased, but that record is really a fantastic record.
Absolutely, and you're entitled to say it, because it absolutely is. And when I was marginally familiar, but not really until a couple of weeks ago. Really, I mean, I knew about your work with Amanda, and I knew of the Highwomen, but when he told me that, I not only did I listen to it, but I did some research on it, and it's an outlier is the best way I could put it. And like you talked about the country music industry and such, and I mean, without getting into all the politics and the culture or whatever, like Brandy, Marin, Amanda, like those who are, and Jason as well, is who I want to stand next to. Like, that's just what they're singing about, how they're moving through life, their messaging.
Right.
Those are my people. Music aside, just
right.
I really admire them. And then putting that into music, I understand why it would not necessarily be, celebrated universally by country music, because in a lot of ways it's an indictment of that. And of course, we know what's going on with, Marin or whatever, and all the drama
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's unfortunate, but at the same time, it just shows the integrity and the intention, and that they walk it like they talk it. And
Yeah.
I can
Yes.
appreciate that, especially in this sort of short attention span music world we live in now. Like, having something with that kind of like replay value and resonance year after year, I just wanted to acknowledge that, and also just hear it from you, because I read regular music media about the Highwomen, but to hear it from somebody who was in the process and who was a part of the creation, I think that's awesome. And also probably a bunch of people listening to this who know you through the Allman's connection or through the New York jam scene might be unawares that you're involved in those projects, like I was until just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah.
Coming from him too, we're literally like watching wrestling. He's a big wrestling guy, so he's got pro wrestling up on the huge big screen TV, and he hands me the Highwomen record, and says, "This is my favorite album of the past 5 years." I was like, "Wow, put it on!" And I get it though; it's amazing, and play it for my wife, and yeah, I'm stoked. I'm late to the party, but I'm definitely a fan, and I'm interested in checking out. I've seen some stuff with Amanda Shires, but again, that was something I learned, like how involved you were with her only in preparing for this conversation.
I got one more Sam Powder, and I'm not gonna let him catch me, no. I'm not gonna let him catch me if I'm fine. No.
But one thing I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, this is kind of a left field question, but I've seen it mentioned multiple times in things about you in the media, including your bio, that the Beastie Boys recorded at the Moon Palace.
Well, I did some work for the Beastie Boys, which was out of my studio, Moon Palace.
Can you talk about that a little?
Sure. A good buddy of mine, Sammy Sever, he's a OG New York City producer from way back. I mean, he's worked with so many folks, Run DMC back in the day. I mean, Beasties, a bunch of people. He actually has a part producer credit on, I believe it's Tricky from the Raising Hell record back. And so Sammy, man, he's really one of those under the radar OG great producer types. So yeah, he's been friends with the Beasties, and when they did that record, Open Letter to NYC, he did some remixes of those tunes, and that's what he brought me in on. He brought me in on some of the remixes, which were all recorded at my studio. I wish the guys had been there hanging. They weren't. I have met them a few times through some gigs in New York City, but that's kind of how that went down. Sammy brought me in. We recorded that stuff at my spot. Again, the remix work where I would just sort of, start. I would really just have their acapellas and would just, kind of have a blank canvas, and Sammy would throw up some drums. I'd throw up some keys, and
Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, and Staten, from the Battery to the top of Manhattan, Asian, Middle Eastern, and Latin, black, white, New York, you make it happen. Brownstones, wide tower streets, skyscrapers, restaurants, fighters, and Wall Street traders. We come together on the subway cars, diversity unified, whoever you are.
Remix work was really big back then, and it is, I guess, a little bit today. It's a little different, but usually when folks would come out with records, especially in the hip hop world, there would always be a certain number of remixes. They would have, the After Hours remix, or the Sunrise whatever remix, or this remix or that. So it was really amazing to be a part of that. I mean, grew up listening to those guys. I mean, we were not necessarily at rival high schools, but we were the same age. And I remember seeing those guys open up for Madonna at Radio City Music Hall, and so it was really cool to eventually get to be a part of their records, and a catalog, I guess you'd say.
Of course. And thank you for your time and the energy and the stories and all the reflections, man. That's what this podcast is really about. Like, I'm just trying to get people to tell their stories in their own words, so we have them. So this was really informative and illuminating. Thank you.
Thank you, bud. Thank you.
I've been looking for a trace, looking for a heart, looking for another in a world that's much too dark. You don't want my love, your satisfaction has you down. You don't need my love, you gotta find yourself another piece of the action, yeah.
Yes, indeedy. I want to say thank you to Peter Levin for that insightful and illuminating walk down memory lane and reflecting on his career and collaborators. The man has touched a lot of lives, made a lot of music with a lot of folks, and that was a real joy to just revisit that with him and encapsulate his career in such a way. And we talked about the Highwomen and my man J.A., who loves the Highwomen, so I figured let's have J.A. on to talk about that and summer tours, like we've done, I think, 2 times already. J.A. come on, talk about the slate of summer tours. So we get into that, and we get into some other stuff, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions, the Fish at the Sphere, and a little more. And my man loves GNR, so I had to throw on some classic Guns from '88. It says acoustic, you're crazy, but it's not quite acoustic like on GNR Lies. The only person playing an acoustic in this live set here is Izzy. Everyone else is on their usual instruments. Nonetheless, fantastic, you're crazy from '88, Connecticut. Now let's hear from my man, one of my best friends going back to elementary school, Jason Abrams. We call him J.A., Rock and Wrestling Connection Podcast, among a number of other endeavors. Here comes J.A. All right. Well, we're back. I'm in this mode of giving the people what they want. And this is one of the more popular voices to come on the podcast, and a big inspiration to me going back to the Jason Abrams show, Camden County College 25 years ago. Huh. My man, he's always down to talk rock and roll. We did summer tours a few times. It was real popular. So back on the Upful Life podcast for his unprecedented 5th appearance, the one and only J.A. Jason Abrams. Welcome back.
Thanks, Brian. Always a pleasure to be here talking music with you.
Yeah, man. And peeps just heard from the great Peter Levin, keyboardist with so many different cats, too many to name, but one where we mentioned you, talked about one of your favorite records, the Highwomen. So before we get into summer tour, I was really blown away by the passion and that you have for this record, for this group of women. Not that it was unexpected, only that wasn't the record I expected you to pull out of your stack of thousands off the wall. So tell me about, just a little bit about your feelings and why you love the Highwomen.
Well, I've always been a huge fan of songwriters, as you know, with Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan, Bob Marley. And those 3 particular artists, when you hear their vocals, the music also accompanies it. And I felt that with this record in particular, too, the message that they're trying to get across about different stories of women then, now, and forever. The music worked so well with it. And then it turned out you were interviewing one of the musicians.
Yeah, man, it was so weird because I literally did that interview just like a few days, maybe a week after we had that hang where we went through your record collection and sort of played some of your faves while we watched old wrestling tapes. And while I know that WrestleMania was just in Philly, I actually want to talk about something else equally dear to you. Now, the disclaimer is neither of us attended the Sphere, but between us, we have over 500 Fish shows, and probably, at least 50 or 60 of the same. So, just your snap reaction to the Sphere, what you saw, what you heard, what your friends who were there had to tell you.
You know what? I'll just go with what Trey said before the Sphere even started was they were going to test the limits of this thing, and it looks like they really did. I will say the sound mix was the best I've ever heard through the computer, through the modern time. So I hope that was reflective for the fans inside.
Yeah, it seems like it was, man. And like, we all have our opinions about how much stuff costs and, how prohibitive some of these amazing, productions that they put on are for some of us. So, it was strictly a financial thing for me. Otherwise, I would have loved to have gone. I know a lot of our friends went, and well, it remains to be seen whether this is a one and done or an annual thing. But I hear a lot of people say it revolutionized the concert experience. I'll be interested to see how they do 19 nights of Dead and Co. But yeah, it's a new dawn, new day for sure.
It's funny you mention that because my friend who wants to go out there for a couple shows asked me like, "Oh, do you think like the Sphere will be like more Grateful Deadish or like computer or cartoonish image or famous Grateful Dead imagery, as opposed to how like like we said, Fish was testing the limits with like all this like creativeness every night. But just today they announced that a new show starting at the Sphere that is curated by Mickey Hart. So it looks like they're already, putting their fingers in there and making creative stuff. So I'm sure it's going to be maybe crazy, especially if they got all those different nights. They're going to really take it.
Yeah, one thing I've always appreciated about Dead and Company is they've kind of grabbed like the visionary artists of today and had them do like drum space or like visual accompaniment. So the sky's the limit with what they can do there. They did use some Mickey Hart imagery, night 4 of Fish. Obviously, the Pollock 3D stuff was breathtaking. I mean, and then, we'll have to see, if this is something that becomes, and
Fish is about to. So then now they'll do the opening night of their tour in Great Woods, which is the last time Gamehenge was played before it was at Madison Square Garden. So maybe you'll get Gamehenge, Sphere, Gamehenge.
no
You never
shot.
know with these guys.
No shot. And I don't want to make this into a total Fish thing, but I do think that I'm interested to see what they do from here, just because they're coming off that huge Gamehenge production New Year's Eve, and then, obviously a detour down to another Mexico, and then the Sphere, which was again a revolutionary experience for the band and fans. So who knows what the summer is going to behold, but there's a lot more happening on summer tours than just the Fish from Vermont, even though it does take up a sizable amount of our particular attention economy. Let's start with your other favorite band of all time, who's finally going to perform at Jazz Fest in 10 or 11 days from when we're talking now. And then they're going to do a number of stadium dates around the country. So what are your thoughts on the Stones? You told me off the air you think this could be the final hurrah.
Well, I mean, we've been saying that since 1989. But I mean, really, how many more shows do the guys have in them? They're not even playing like shows every week. They're playing like 3-4 shows a month. They're stretching it throughout the summer, and it's it's an absolute treat to just be able to see the guys that help shape the business and the music that we still see today. Like maybe to go back to WrestleMania weekend, Paul Heyman talked about how ECW might have only been around for 7 years, but you're going to see stuff at WrestleMania this year that is still influenced by ECW from 25, 30 years ago. And whether these artists today know it or not, they're always going to be influenced by the Rolling Stones on both sides of the barricade.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that right now, because another one of my former favorite bands who I've sworn off, the Black Crowes, who came out the gates as kind of like a Stones Faces facsimile, and then devolved into more jammy or psychedelic territory, which is what I was into. And obviously, there's been a lot of talk about what's become of the Crowes, like the Brothers Robinsons, like whatever reunion, the Scab band members. And of course, they're doing, like 25 songs a night, 5-minute renditions of everything, no jamming. Yet they just sold out the Fox Theater here in Oakland. You're hearing a lot of real positive chatter. Ronnie Wood from the Stones came out, did a Faces tune with them in LA. So maybe the Crowes, with Aerosmith on their way out, with the Stones maybe on their way out, the Crowes maybe see an opportunity for them to fill rooms for the next 15 years in that same mold. But I, for one, I'm out. I'm done with the Crowes. I'm Team Gorman for life. But I don't know how you feel about that.
We've seen the Black Crowes through so many different renditions. They've definitely started to ease themselves into a
nostalgia,
a polished act where they will have this type of show that they'll be able to take across the country and put into a Vegas theater one day for 30 nights and multiple residencies. You're right. It's not the same Black Crowes from the third and fourth record where they were diving into songs, playing different set lists, but it's a different time for them. Like you said, the brothers probably aren't great friends. So, to get the show that they got going now is what they're going to do to get a paycheck.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Pin me, pay me, as you like to say. And honestly, if you look at the press photos of the brothers, just the two of them, they always look miserable.
I'll tell you who's doing it right, Oasis. You know why? They're just going to hold out. Every year it gets more expensive. The Glastonbury bill goes up. And instead of doing 30 years together, they'll do 1 year together. Well, they'll get like $5 million a night and never see each other again.
Sorry about that. I had to let my cat in the door for a second there. Gladys must have heard that JA was on the horn and wanted to see what was going on. But
I'm a fan of her and the Pips.
So, staying in your wheelhouse, and in the state of New Jersey, which is where we were born, bred, and where we met, came of age. Let's talk about the boss. Let's talk about Bruce, who actually had to take some time away for some health stuff, maybe for the first time in his career, certainly for the first time in a long time. Yet he's back out doing 3-hour marathons again. Is there a more rewarding delivering of a rock and roll show in 2024 than Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band?
Yeah, I feel like Bruce pigeonholed himself 30 years ago when he put on these marathon shows, and then all these people would write about are these marathon shows. So if you go see Bruce Springsteen and you get anything less than 2 hours and 45 minutes, shy of 3 hours, you feel let down. So he really puts it all in there. One of my favorite all-time quotes from all the interviews and all the books I've ever read about all of our favorite musicians is Bruce Springsteen one time says, I don't wake up Bruce Springsteen. It takes me a few hours to become Bruce Springsteen. And, it's just I always think about that now when I watch him perform. I'm like, this man really dedicates, a lot more than just these few hours to make sure this show is where it is. And now this round, he's starting to open up the set list. There's 3, 4, 5 different songs every night. The fans really zero in on that, on the internet, and love to be like, oh my God, Growing Up was played from the first album the other night. And it's awesome because he's got a roulette of just wheel of so many incredible songs. And, you got to hear a few more than just the 26 songs,
I mean, depends. There are people that go to the shows like they go to the Crow shows where they just want to hear the hits, the songs they know. Then you got the hardcores that remember when Bruce would mix up the set list, almost half and half every night. So I wanted to piggyback because I think it was last year or maybe 2 years ago when we did our sort of like summer tour or talking about touring. It was right after that there was like, the capitalism Bruce thing happened and back what did they call the Bruce magazine that they stopped? Backstreet. Thank you. Too much. I'm starting to get the weed forgetful stuff as I get older here. I would have known that. I'm not even a Bruce guy. I knew that record, or knew that magazine, but I digress. We talked a couple years ago about how there was a certain sect or slice of the greater Bruce community that was very disgusted by how they'd been priced out of the opportunity to go to many nights in a row, and not unlike something I maybe expressed about Fish over the years, which is just the rising prices, and with that came like a loss of innocence. So now that it's been a couple years and Bruce took some time away, now he's back and basically doing the same thing. You know, maybe like you said, a few less variables on a night-to-night basis, but 3-hour marathons and continuing the legacy. Where are those hardcore fans who were turned off a couple years ago? Did they figure it out and come back, or did Bruce lose like a sizable amount of his like lifers?
I wouldn't say he lost a sizable amount of his lifers. I do feel like Backstreet's kind of like piggybacked on a way just to try and like, save face of being in a tough world of producing a magazine. To be able to produce a magazine in 2024, I mean, it sounds like a nightmare. But he did have some bad management for the first time in his career. I think John Landau, who's only worked with like him and the MC5 and a very few others, he gave him some bad management in the terms of the dynamic ticket pricing. Because at the same time, not only that, he also received like $500 million for his catalog, and money was just flooding into the Springsteen camp, so it did kind of look poor. But you know what? You're on the back nine of his career, his life. You got to cash in. He's going to have grandchildren, and he probably wants to make sure they're all taken care of the best they possibly can, and his legacy.
I'm sure they were mighty fine, back in the Rising era. But we'll move on from Bruce. But I'm happy to see him back doing his thing. Shout out to my man Doc Weiss, who's a huge Bruce fan like yourself, and he's been bopping all over, catching shows like you and Del Wiz.
Doc.
Yep. When we talk about marathon shows, when we talk about setting the bar, there's some new sheriffs in town, some young sheriffs in town from down under, none other than King Giz. Now, King Giz kind of put their foot into the game over the past 2 years, becoming kind of like an it band, kind of like a underground explosion that I kind of reminded me of the way Wolfpack came of age, even though they're not the same type of bands, just the underground force that just pushed them into sheds and maybe not arenas yet, but close enough. And now people are going on Giz tour. They're making Giz merch. There is a whole like cottage industry, not unlike the hippie bands that we cut our teeth on. But Giz is not anything. Giz is like, depends on the night or album you catch them. They're Iron Maiden. They're So Live. They just do all this different shit, sometimes in the same set, sometimes in the same night. How do you see King Giz Summer Tour 24? Do you think they're going to like leapfrog Goose and become like the band, or do you see them kind of retreating into a more like, niche scene?
Well, they're doing the right thing. Like they're appealing to people that like to buy concert tickets, and that's a good thing. So you're right. You got the Fish fans, and then you got the young like heartbeat older 20-somethings that aren't Fish fans buying their tickets. So they're just appealing to the concert goer that wants to go have a good time. The changeable set list always makes it exciting to go to multiple shows on a tour. And of course, the music is the most important thing. And like you said, they're just like a rock and roll bar mitzvah. It's you can hear. I'll take it from a couple rock and roll Hall of Famers that we'll talk about coming up. Some of their songs sound like Kool and the Gang. Some of their songs might sound like Dave Matthews. Some of their songs might sound like Iron Maiden. They're doing it all, and they're doing it very good. And what's awesome is how humble they are. When you listen to their interviews, and people throw Fish at them, Goose, and this, they're learning about those bands like in real time. They're not like they weren't super influenced by this stuff, but they're gonna learn about the way those guys toured and did business, and that's gonna influence them.
Yeah, I'd argue it already has. And to be frank, I do enjoy the Giz. I still have yet to see him live. Hopefully going to remedy that this summer.
Unbelievable live
Yeah,
band.
I just admire them with regard to their ambition. Because like if you put on like a Giz playlist on Spotify or whatever your streaming of choice, and then you hit shuffle, sometimes you're hard pressed to believe you're listening to the same band back to back tunes.
It's so funny because I've seen it twice now at this poker game particular I play at. They flip records and the Giz records are like, double records, four-sided, and somewhere someone will always pop up and be like, wait, is this still the same band? And it's like, yeah, I've heard that multiple times. So you're doing something right when you got the people's ear like that,
Definitely. And like there's a lot of like what we have to consider classic rock bands, which makes us feel old. The bands that were like vital when we were young people in the 90s, and I'm talking about Green Day or Tool or Pearl Jam, Alanis, those are kind of the nostalgia, like the throwback cast of big tent tours now, and
Right,
honestly, it makes me feel
really
old. Oh, No Doubt is back. I mean, come on.
No. I'll make you feel really old. Those bands, okay, how about this? 10 years after that, you get Creed, and what was the headline the other day? Creed played their first show in 12 years. Okay?
Yeah, there's a huge show out here, System of a Down Deftones at Golden Gate Park, 40,000 cap, and it's $200 face and sold the fuck out.
Wow. No, these bands, so they're, generations and generations more as you stay around. Longevity is like, it's something you can't put in a class, is how these guys can stay around and going away for 4 or 5 years also makes it stronger too.
Yeah, like Green Day went away for a while. Obviously, there's the post Taylor Hawkins factor with Foo. I guess for me, you sent me a list. The most interesting name on this list to me is Janet. Janet could have been, should have been, but between being Michael's sister and the Super Bowl bullshit, she just got raw deal after raw deal. But when you think about her records and you think about who Janet is as like an entertainer, I mean, she's like neck and neck with Madonna as far as like just absolute like excellence. And I'll be honest, like I probably of all these like bold font names we're talking here, all the ones we mentioned already, plus the Chili's or Def Leppard or what have you. The one that I would like pay face value to go see within an instant is Janet.
Brian, you hit it right on the head. There is nothing more difficult than having a famous father, having a famous brother, and filling their shoes. People think that's easier. Now let's call back to WrestleMania again. Cody Rhodes wins the world title. His father, Dusty Rhodes, is top 5 greatest wrestlers of all time.
Son of a plumber.
There's no doubt about it. The Rock is the greatest of all time, and he said his favorite wrestler growing up was Dusty Rhodes. Now, Cody Rhodes was in the WWE for 7 or 8 years and left and went to New Japan, Ring of Honor, AEW, really had to find his footing, because when you are the son, or in this case, the grandson of a plumber, when you're the son of a famous wrestler or a famous musician or a brother or sister, you have to be 5 times better. You have to sign 25 more times autographs and kiss 25 more times babies. You have to work way harder. I feel like it's harder when you have that. And Janet Jackson, with her brother being, her Prince and her brother being the greatest musicians of the generation before her, had some hard shoes to fill, and she's totally crushed it. Her producing partner, Jimmy Jam, like they've made some of the greatest, most influential records today, and you will hear her spilled all over Coachella when you listen to some of those younger artists.
No doubt. And to be clear, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, they're a team. And they were in the time, Prince's crew, and they broke off to do Janet's records and all the great Janet records. Literally every single one.
They went in as musicians 2 years ago.
Yeah, they're just legends in every possible way. And also want to just mention for my music nerds out there, the two-part 7.5 hour podcast, Questlove Supreme with Jimmy Jam, is hands down like on the short list for greatest music podcasts I've ever heard. The story, not only his own stories, but the stories he tells about Prince, the stories he tells about Michael. It's worth 7.5 hours of your time to listen to this one man talk. Jimmy Jam, Questlove Supreme. It's about 4-year-old episode. Came out during the pandemic. 2 episodes. So I just want to shout that out. Now, real
Anything
quick.
I've ever heard Questlove do, whether it's his podcast or other people's podcast, is just you want to be a sponge and just grasp everything he says. All he does is talk about such great history.
All right. Speaking about history, since we only got a little while left.
Yeah, let me run down the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the new members for you, Brian, and I want to get your opinions because I know some of these artists. I would say the top name this year is Mary J. Blige. What does that mean to a guy like you that Mary J. Blige is going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Well, first off, I just want to say that I'm of the opinion that all of, Black American music of all kinds, hip hop, funk, all of it belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know that's like a bone of contention with some people, but I just want to come out in front and say that. I love Mary.
They're not real. When anyone who knows the term rock and roll encompasses a lifestyle, a feeling, and a vibe. If you think that's a note and a lyric, you don't know anything. Back to you.
No, you're 100% right, and I couldn't have said it any better myself. In fact, I didn't. So I'm gonna let the way you described why rock and roll is more than just a sound or a genre. It's just perfect. And that's why Mary belongs to be in. I mean, she is the queen of hip hop soul. She changed the way Black radio went down and it was able to be played across multiple formats. Aside from the numbers don't lie with the records, she defined Ghetto Fabulous. She gave birth to all of them. Missy Elliott, Sierra, Aaliyah, you name it. Like Mary kicked down the fucking door. And I'll never forget, I want to say it's around 2001 or 2, Grammys. She did her tune No More Drama. And I watched it with my mom in real time. And I can't tell you how many times I played it back on YouTube, and I'll drop a snippet in right here. But when you talk about she played live, she sang live, and where she took that 4 minutes of time and what she had been singing about and all of it, it just translated in a way that few award show performances ever have for me. So yeah, I'm Team Mary. I finally got to see her full set last summer at the Blue Note Jazz Festival in Napa, and it was fucking incredible. She and Nas both headlined and like one each night, and it was my first time seeing them do their thing for a full set, and it was incredible. So shout out Mary J. And while we're on the topic of hip hop and R&B, Tribe Called Quest. So this has been the thing where they've been letting in some hip hop here, and I can't believe Jay-Z got in before Tribe, but I think it's safe to say Tribe is probably the most impactful hip hop group of our generation in terms of like Black folk, white folk, college kids, people in urban areas, male, female. I remember seeing them live for the first time, Lollapalooza 94, JFK Park, Beasties, Smashing Pumpkins, Hole, P-Funk, Tribe Called Quest, Dash Go shirtless, rapping at the crowd. Like it was unbelievable. So I just want to say Tribe Called Quest, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I hope that they don't get a bunch of blowback by bunch of fucking cognoscenti, gatekeepers, but I firmly believe that they cut across gender, sex, race, and there's like nobody thinks they're whack, right? They're in that unique space. You never hear any. They might not like the last album, or the second to last. People didn't like the Love Movement, but aside from that, I would say they're pretty much an unimpeachable hip hop group.
You said it all. You would know that's your wheelhouse, but from what I understand, they are Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. From the way,
what do you make of? Real quick, I don't mean to cramp your style, but Dave getting in before Trey?
Well, let's not forget when we were in high school, if I'm not mistaken, they sold out 3 nights at Vet Stadium with the Roots and Santana. So like we're talking 95, right?
Yeah, that's
That's
under
pretty,
in the under the table and dreaming. Take these chances, tripping billies. Yeah, that was a big record.
he's Dave Matthews is the man. Dave Matthews loves music. He loves people. He's what it's all about. It's about love. And he deserves every honor. I'm so glad he's getting in. And hey, maybe Trey will induct him. You never know. That would be super cool.
Oh wow, what a call from JA. I hope from your lips to Ja ears. Because they inducted they did something for Genesis, I remember. Okay, we
Yeah.
just got the 10-minute warning. We got 10 minutes left.
Okay, well,
Let's go back to you.
Now, 2-time Hall of Famer Ozzy Osbourne went in once with Black Sabbath. Now the solo career will be recognized, which is super important because Randy Rhoads wrote some of the greatest records ever with Ozzy, and that stuff needs to be put on a shelf, so to speak, so the whole world can remember. When they flip through these books, knows that there's 2 parts to the Ozzy career.
Totally. I mean, honestly, as much as I love Sabbath, like it was the Ozzy records. And for me, as much as when Gabe Rock came over to my house, or I came over to his house, both times. Well, the first time was my house. I'm talking 5th grade, just me and him. He played me Wipeout and Crazy Train. Those are the 2 songs he played. But I digress. I want to say,
once again, there you go. That's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Surf music and heavy metal. It's all in there, bro.
Totally. But I remember getting No Rest for the Wicked on tape, the first Zakk Wylde album with Miracle Man, and watching that video on Headbangers Ball. And then I kind of worked backwards. And I think obviously people love Randy Rhoads and the early Ozzy solo stuff, Mr. Crowley, Suicide Solution. But the Jakey Lee era with Shot in the Dark, it's a little glammy. It's got some synths, but I think it's a really undergraded, because you got Tommy Aldridge, later of Whitesnake, on drums. So I'm a big fan of that version of Ozzy. And then, when you talk about the Zakk years, No More Tears, like the Ozfest era, Ozzy arguably, because Sabbath, you're talking Ronnie James Dio also. So that it's a different thing. Ozzy's just a member, but Ozzy is Ozzy. He's an institution. I mean, unfortunately, a sizable amount of the zeitgeist thinks of Ozzy as the stammering guy on reality TV. But there was a time where he was like forbidden. Like you couldn't, like parents were like going to the PTA meetings complaining about like their kids listening to Ozzy. He was the Prince of Darkness before he was like America's dad.
And so not only is his music inspired, and so much music has now come from his music, but he also and wife gave the opportunity to so many bands to play the 2nd and 3rd stages at Ozfest, and then they would get to tour the country. And for better or for worse, these bands would now become big bands. I mean, he just really helped the metal community, helped himself, but, a big, big deal when it comes to music. I don't think it gets any bigger. I remember one time Ozzy did the Howard Stern show and McCartney was coming on next, and it's a famous video where they meet for each other for the first time. And it's the only time you'll ever see Ozzy Osbourne acting like a child, like a fanboy. He is just at his wits meeting the Beatle, Paul McCartney, who real quickly, I just saw today, was at the Stones rehearsal spot in Los Angeles. His card came out, paparazzi and fans called him.
You love to see it. And of course, I mean, all those bands, even the heavy bands like Sabbath, they grew up in England. They're listening to the Beatles. The Beatles are, a lot of people's gateway drug. So, anybody's going to turn into a child in the presence of their heroes. I wanted to ask you on the topic of In Twice, is Cher already in with Sonny and Cher?
I'm not sure about that.
I'm surprised they gave her a solo ride.
She's a tremendous career, tremendous amounts of hits, fashion icon. Once again, the whole rock and roll vibe exists in her. Nobody would ever be able to get married or have a bar mitzvah if it wasn't for Kool and the Gang. I mean, they've provided the soundtrack for every celebration ever. This band deserves the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, just like Foreigner. 2 bands in 2 separate genres that just wake up in the morning and write hits that everyone knows. And
That's a fair statement. I want to say that, in my opinion, Kool and the Gang's best work is pre-celebration, is pre-Jumpin' the Shark. They were like a dirty ass funk band before they were hit makers. Shout out Michael Ray from the Cosmic Crew.
It's great now that, like, you know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has been around long enough, so now we can recognize all these other great artists. It's a show first and foremost, so they can only put so many artists in per year. But now, you know, it's long overdue for lots of these groups. But Kool and the Gang, what an awesome! I mean, I understand what you're saying, Brian. The Get Down, Cherish, Summer Madness. It's not what you're looking for when you listen. But, you know, the people want to hear the Jungle Boogie. We saw a great Jungle Boogie in Miami.
We did, you know,
with Ozzy, right? Wait, was that not correct? Ozzy and Black Sabbath and Jungle Boogie in the same night. Now that's one way to bring it full circle and wrap this thing up.
Well, I would agree.
Tell the people what I'm talking about real quick.
We're talking about Miami. The Fish from Vermont, where the Heat play, American Airlines Arena. I want to say that was 2009, maybe?
Something like that.
Marching band, wild times. All right, I just got to say one thing because I'd be remiss. I'm on my way to Jazz Fest in about 48 hours. That I'm not down with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because somehow the meters are not in. And I think that is one of the true, just absolute travesties. If we're going to have an institution recognizing influence and the meters are not in, I can't show my face in New Orleans next week without letting it be known that that's some bullshit.
And I guess once again, just to prove how everything is rock and roll, the 2 greatest travesties, the Meters and Iron Maiden, are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Those are literally 2 of the greatest 2 of the greatest bands of all time.
Yeah, I would have put Maiden in before Ozzy solo, but what do I know? I want to finish up because, you know, this is going to be a long episode because we got a conversation with Peter. No, you and I went over half an hour.
Yeah, what an honor to be on the episode with him. Huge shout out. Make sure everyone does go check out the Highwomen.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll have dropped a snippet in earlier when we talked. But I do want to say this or ask you this because we talk all the time off the air. 2024 versions of these bands and singers, gun to your head, can only go to one show. Bon Jovi, Guns N' Roses.
I might ask you to shoot me. Richie?
Well, but 2020 has Easy back.
We're going to see Axl and Slash, I guess. Once again, another man who pigeonholed himself. One day he goes out there and plays for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Next thing you know, he's like, all right, guys, we're doing it every night, you know? That's what people are expecting, you know? Yeah,
I mean, you know, I love that this guy's figured it out and put it back together, and we can only hope that JBJ and Richie do the same. This has been great, J.A.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll miss you at Jazz Fest. I used to love walking around New Orleans after the shows with you, talking about life with the homies. So you'll be missed in New Orleans, but I'll be back in Philly sooner than I thought.
You'll have that big turkey leg walking around eating that big turkey leg. Oh, I'll be so jealous.
You know, we'll be doing it up for you, brother.
Crawfish Monica.
All right, bro.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Peace.
Yeah, you're right, baby. Good to see everybody. Happy Jazz Fest. Yeah! There's something wrong with this picture. Tell me what it is. Why don't y'all say? There's something wrong with this picture right here. Forget about me, how could you?
I want to say thank you to my man, Jason Abrams. Rock and Wrestling Connection podcast, one of my dearest friends. Thank you for that hilarious and, always insightful dialogue about summer tours, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Fish at the Sphere. Love chatting with my man J.A. It's become tradition here on the Upful Life podcast. Another tradition, like none other, New Orleans Jazz Fest, where I will be in just about 30 hours. So when you're listening to this, it'll probably be going on. Or who knows, maybe people listen to this way after the fact. But bottom line is, headed to Jazz Fest. It's my 20th year since 2000. Unfortunately, my mom, who's been to the last 13 with me, can't make it this year. She caught pneumonia a few weeks ago, and she's just not strong enough, doctor's orders. So shout out to my mom, Ermsey. We're going to miss you this year down there in New Orleans, but everybody sends their love, and we know you'll be back in a big way in 2025. So without any further ado, like we always do about this time, the Vibe Junkie Jam. Now, first I put on a little bit of Galactic with Houseman, rest in peace to Thurl DeClute, just to set the vibe for Jazz Fest, but then I realized I'm going to actually play something else. Play some New Orleans Jazz Fest type stuff, maybe in the tailwind and afterglow of Jazz Fest. But we're going to go with the Highwomen, because Jason loves the Highwomen, PETER LEVIN contributed to the Highwomen, and they cover Fleetwood Mac, The Chain, one of my favorite songs of all time. Fleetwood Mac is very dear to my wife. It was one of her favorite bands of her late father, Ron. Anytime we hear Fleetwood Mac, we're always thinking of him, and it's just very, very sacred music in this house. So also want to note that Mark Farina, at the end of one of his sets at Resonate Swanee a couple weeks ago, played twice. So at the end of his second set, he dropped a very beautiful, sensual, smooth, deep house, slow and sexy remix of Fleetwood Mac, The Chain, that just was like just an emotional dart to the jugular. So is this. This is the Highwomen doing The Chain, Fleetwood Mac, on the Howard Stern show a couple years ago, which is hilarious because Howard Stern traditionally kind of a jackass misogynist. That was his brand of comedy, for better or for worse, but people love him, swear by him. My man J.A. used to be a daily Stern listener. Dave from Dopey loves him some Stern. So we're going to play this Highwomen, The Chain, Fleetwood Mac cover on the Howard Stern show. And that'll do it for episode 77. Thank you, PETER LEVIN. Thank you, Jason Abrams. Thank you to all the listeners out there, the Upful Life of Maniacs running wild. Appreciate you tuning in and supporting this show. And we'll say goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you next time. Yes, indeedy.
There's something wrong with this picture right here. Forget about me, how could you? Well, there's something wrong. There's got to be something wrong.
Listen to the wind blow, watch the sun rise. Run in the shadows, damn your love, damn your lies. And if you don't